Hi class, this is Property 2 and we're going to be talking about personal property. Personal property, as I told you before, is just the opposite of real property. It's not permanently attached to the earth. A good example of personal property would be a car. Okay, it rolls around on the earth, but it's not permanently affixed. Sometimes in wills, which are simply a piece of paper, a document that says, if I die, you get X. And in, let's say, a situation with a car, that the father says, if I die, you get my car. That would be a will. In Michigan, it has to be signed by two people who are witnesses, and of course signed by the person who it is writing the will. If there's going to be a change to the will, that's called a codicil. And typically, if you're going to have a codicil, which is an amendment of the will, you want to refer to the first will and say, this is how I'm changing it. So let's say the father originally gave the car to his son, but then decided to give it to his daughter. The codicil would note the first will and then say, I've changed my mind, I'm going to give it to my daughter. Something that a lot of people are doing now is called a trust. Think of a trust as a huge bowl in which you put all of your property, your real property and your personal property, into this bowl. Husbands and wives do this, and what happens is that the husband, let's say, dies first, which is typical, and then the trust goes over to the wife. The wife doesn't have to go through probate, and the wife gets everything tax-free. Now let's say the wife has the trust now, and she keeps it for like 5 years, and then she dies. They have one child. The one child receives the trust and doesn't have to pay any money on the trust. So trust you can only have if you have so much money. You'd have to check with your attorney. But you can see that trusts are a valuable thing in order to pass things on. Part of the trust is the will, but there are many other things that mention what's in the trust, and it's a way, as I said before, to avoid probate and to avoid taxes. Now, gifts. Let's say that your uncle says to you, I want to give you my motorcycle. I broke my back, I can't use it anymore. There's 3 things that have to be present in order for the gift to be given. First is your uncle has the intent to give it to you. Your uncle delivers the motorcycle with the keys, and you accept it. So therefore, if your uncle's son says, wait a minute, I thought I was going to get it, you would have to show these 3 things. And you'll need to know these 3 things for the exam. Another thing is, let's say savings accounts. There's 2 ways that you can hold them. One is joint tenant with right of survivorship. So let's say your mother is like that on a savings account with you. And it says right on the savings account, joint tenant with right of survivorship. And it's your mother and it's you. If you were to die, your mother would get 100% of what's in that savings account. But let's say that you're living with someone and you just put in tenants in common in the bank account. It says Mary and Jane, tenants in common. Then what would happen is, let's say Jane lived, Mary died. Mary's heirs would get 50%. And then Jane would receive the other 50%. That's called a tenant in common. Joint tenant, as I said before, the 2 people, one dies, the person that lives gets 100%. Thank you very much.